Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from Jenny Card Designs. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. In today's video, we're going to be doing another installment of Jenny's Junk Journals, and this is going to be a 5.5 by 6 inch book using 8.5 by 11 pieces of cardstock and 6 by 6 pieces of pattern paper. So let's jump into this project. For this project, you'll need some 8.5 by 11 sheets of cardstock, some pattern paper, and I've got some Gina Designs pattern paper here. This is the watercolor garden. I've got a circle punch, some Gina Designs and Thermoweb dot runner, some Connect glue, and a bone folder. So we'll just move this stuff out of the way here, and I'll start with my scoreboard. Our book size today is going to measure 5.5 inches by 6 inches. That'll be the finished product measurements. So let's pull in our first sheet of cardstock, and we'll mark our first score. We'll start with the 11-inch side, and we'll score at 5.5 inches, and then we'll turn the cardstock to the 8.5-inch side and score at 6 inches. Okay, you'll crease all of the score marks that you've made. We'll fold the bottom flap up and use the bone folder to crease those so we get a nice sharp crease. And do the same thing. This will be the spine of our book. Once all of your score marks are creased, then we'll put some adhesive dot runner on the edges of the bottom flap to close it up and seal it. And I'll just use my bone folder to press that tape in so we make sure that we get a good contact. And that's it for this panel. We're going to do this same process 5 times. So these are all done. I've already gone ahead and done these off screen because it's the same process 5 times. Okay, and for the next step, we're going to take our Gina Connect glue, and we're going to adhere these together to create our book. So if you've watched any of my other journal videos, I'm going to glue this together the same way. I like to leave that little top space open to create a pocket there. I like to have that extra space to store little note cards and things. So we'll take the adhesive and we'll put it across the top and the side and then the bottom, and then leave that other part open. And we'll press everything together, making sure we're nice and lined up and straight. And the Gina Connect glue dries super fast, so we don't have to wait long for this to be all adhered together. So once this is nice and straight and everything's good to go, we'll continue on to the next panel. So here's our little pocket all ready to go, and we'll move on to the next page. So we'll put the adhesive in the exact same spot and continue on like this through the rest of our book, gluing all 5 pages together and leaving that little top part open for the pocket. And then once the book is all complete, I'll take a bunch of binder clips and I'll just clamp down on the corners of the book to put some pressure on there to make sure that the glue adheres and it's nice and sturdy. So we'll set this aside for a few minutes and then we'll come back to that in a moment. I'm going to work on the cover of our book. I'm going to pull in my Gina Designs watercolor garden paper pack, and I'm just going to browse through it and decide what pages I want for the cover and what pages I want for the inside of the book, and just kind of lay out my design. There's some beautiful designs in this paper pack. I've used some of it previously, so it's not a full paper pack, but there are 3 sheets to each design, and I save every little scrap of this paper because it's so gorgeous. So I've decided that those are going to be the cover, this beautiful floral pattern. So that's going to be our front and back cover. And then I've picked out some pages for the inserts, and we'll get to that in a minute. So let's start with the cover. We're going to cut it down to fit on the front and the back of the book. So the measurements I've got written down here are 5 inches by 5.5 inches. Then I've also decided I'd like a black mat in behind this cardstock. I think it really helps it to pop off the page. So we'll start by trimming down this panel first. So we'll trim 5 inches by 5.5 inches. And then I just put it up in front of my book to make sure that I'm happy with that. And then this is where I decide to bring in that black cardstock. I really felt like it needed some separation between the red background and the red in the flowers. So we're just going to add 1/4 inch to the panel so that we get an 1/8 inch border all the way around. So our measurement for our black background is going to be 5¼ inches by 5¾ inches. So we'll cut out 2 of those panels of black cardstock, one for the front cover and one for the back cover. Okay, so now we've got 2 covers and 2 black mats for those pattern papers. I'll use my Gina K and Thermoweb dot runner to adhere the pattern paper to the black mat. And I'll do this for both my front and my back cover. And then once we have everything into position, we'll get those adhered to the covers of our book. Now I ran into some technical difficulties with my dot runner and I couldn't seem to repair it. I fiddled with it for a little bit and then just gave up on it and switched over to a different tape runner just to keep this project moving. So we'll get those panels adhered to the front and the back of our book. And I'm really happy with the way it's starting to look. I'm really happy with that black mat against the pattern paper. I think it really helps bring everything out. And I'll just use my bone folder to press everything into place. So front and back cover are complete. Let's take a quick look at this project. This is where we are so far. So now all that's left is to come in and decorate and fill the pockets with pretty little things. So lucky for you, in today's video, I'm going to do the whole thing in one shot. You're going to get to see me create the book and decorate it from start to finish. So I just want to show you a little bit of my creative process here. I am very random. I do like to plan things out for the most part, but I don't have any set ideas normally when I start out on a project. I just kind of wing it. And then I share with you the finished product. A lot of the times in my videos, I just start recording and what you see is my first take. So for this particular book, it's the first time I've made this size, and I've just gone based off of the measurements that we have in the previous videos and just kind of worked around that without actually making the project. And I'll tell you what though, this book that we're making today is my absolute most favorite book. I really love the way it turns out. So back to what we're doing here, I'm just cutting up my panels. So I'm going to be layering the inside of my book, and I've decided to go ahead with the black mat as well, the same as what we done on the front. So starting with the panels, we'll need for the top part of the book, the back panel, the piece will measure 5 by 3 inches, and then the pocket cover will measure 5 by 2 inches. And then we're going to increase 1/4 inch for those black mats. So your black mat will measure 5¼ and 2¼ and then for the back panel or the top panel, the measurements are going to be 5 by 3, and then for your mat, it's going to be 5¼ by 3¼ Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I will leave all of the measurements down in the description below, just in case this goes too fast for you and you miss out. So I'll make sure I have those listed for you below so that you can write them down, or you can check out my Jenny Cards Facebook page and everything will be listed there too. Okay, so I'm going to adhere my pattern paper to my black mat. And then once those are all adhered together, I'm going to layer these up onto the first page of my book. Now make sure that you keep any of the scraps for the pattern paper, because we're going to come back to that and use those in the next part for decorating this book. I'm just going to take my time to line everything up, and I'll just eyeball it. I'm not too worried about perfection. And I'll put the top piece and then the pocket cover, and then use my bone folder to press things into place. And this is coming along nicely. So I went ahead and decorated the rest of the inside of this book off screen using all of the papers from the Watercolor Garden collection. And we'll just have a little overview of what it looks like so far. I really like creating those additional pockets in between the pages. I think it creates a fun element to add secret little messages or notes, or for whatever you plan on using this journal for. It gives you that extra storage space. So my mother and I have decided to come up with a project for this little book. We're going to create multiples of them and create little recipe books that we're going to hand down to my kids so that they have a little piece of Grandma's kitchen. So I think that's something special and fun. And so now I've got a little 5/8 of an inch circle punch, and I'm just going through my pages, and I'm just going to punch a little small half of a circle to give us a finger hole to put a little card or journaling tag inside of there. And I just follow along that little guide. There's little arrows on the side of my punch that tells me how far to go inside to create a half of a circle. So I just slip it into the in between the pocket so that I only punch out one page and punch a half of a circle, and it creates a perfect little spot to be able to grab onto whatever you've got inside of there. So I'll do that for all of my pages. And then I'm going to come back and do the exact same thing on the reverse side. Create a second finger hole on the other side of the page. So once that's all done, I'm going to take my book and set it aside, and I'm going to show you how to make some large tags out of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock. So with the measurements that I'm going to give you, you'll end up with 5 tags out of 1 sheet of cardstock. And each tag will measure 3 inches by 5.5 inches. I'm going to pull in my big tonic trimmer. And I'm going to turn my cardstock to the 8.5 inch side. And my first cut is going to be at 3 inches. So we're going to take that long strip that we've got, and we're going to cut that right in half at 5.5 inches. This will be your first 2 tags as shown in the diagram on the left hand side. So now we have this sheet left here, and we'll turn it to the 11 inch side, and we'll just cut out 3 inch panels. So we'll end up with 3 more panels and 1 piece of cardstock left over. Now you can save this scrap and use it for elements to add inside of your book, or for the cover. So now I'm going to grab some of the red cardstock, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So starting on the 8.5 inch side, I'm going to make my first cut at 3 inches. And then I'll take that long strip and cut that in half at 5.5 inches. And then cut out 3 more pieces that are 3 inches each. So all of these tags, again, they'll all measure 3 inches by 5.5 inches. So far they just look like rectangles. So once I get these cut up, I'm going to show you how I turn them into tags. And I'll show you a quick and easy way to make them look uniform. So I've got my last tag piece cut out, and I'm going to set these pieces off to the side. So I'm going to grab 1 red tag and 1 white tag. And then I'm going to take my scissors and just make an angle cut and snip off one of those corners. And then I flip the cardstock over on itself so that each part has a corner cut off. And you'll see, you'll give yourself a little guide where to trim off the next piece of cardstock. So we'll cut that white piece off, and then flip it over and cut that little red piece off. And then there we have 2 templates to go ahead and cut the rest of our tags with. For the white cardstock, I'll use the red template. It's just easier to see, and I'll get everything lined up and trim down the corners. And we've got a bunch of perfectly cut little tags, and they're all going to be the same cut. They'll all have the same uniform look across the board. And I'll continue that until all of my tags are cut out. And for the red tags, I'll use the white cardstock and make the exact same cuts. Okay, so here we have a pile of tags to fill inside of our little book. And now here is where we're going to use the paper scraps that we've saved throughout this video. So when we're trimming out our covers and our pocket inserts and things like that, I keep all those little pieces of pattern paper to be able to decorate these tags. So here's my big pile of scraps. And I'm just going to decorate 2 tags per page so that each pocket in my book has a coordinating tag. So I've just gone along the top of the tag, taking the scrap just to accent the top of it and leave the bottom part open where we can add a photo or a journaling tag or a recipe or anything like that. So I'm just going to grab my crocodile and I'm going to punch a hole in the top of these tags so that they look more like a tag. And then if you desire to use them for gifts or anything like that, then they're going to be in there ready to go. So I'll go ahead and I'll punch a hole through all of these tags, and then we're going to get them slipped inside of the book. So here we're really going to get to see how pretty this book is turning out to be. So I'm going to slip my tags in, and now I've just kind of gone back and forth between red and white, deciding what I think looked best. And I'm going to put 1 tag in each pocket. These floral patterns are so beautiful. I really like the way this book turned out. Okay. So now we're going to work on the little inserts to go inside of those little pockets in between the pages. Okay, so I've just went to my computer and printed off this little logo that I have. I use Avery L Design and Print online, and I'll link to that below in the description. And I just added my name, and I'm going to cut these into A2 size panels. So they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm just cutting out 4 panels to put 1 in each of my pockets. So they just need to be trimmed down just a little bit more, I think, because it's not going to fit all the way. And then I'm going to create a little tab to stick out of that little finger hole. And I'm going to use my envelope punch board for this. You don't necessarily have to use a punch board, but I just like the way that the tab looks on the punch board. So let's start with that. I'm going to grab one of the scraps that I have left over, and I'm going to add a little strip to the end of this piece of cardstock here so that it coordinates with the perspective pocket that it's going to slide into. So I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive and attach that pattern paper. I'll just take my scissors and trim any of the overhang. And then I'm going to grab my We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board. And I'm going to create a little file folder tab with my punch board. I'm going to line up my cardstock to the 2-inch mark and punch, and then I'm going to line the edge of the cardstock sheet up with that little arrow, and you'll see it creates a little tab, and then this excess we have to trim off. So I'll just grab my scissors and make a long cut and trim it right to the edge of that little tab. And there we've got a perfect little file folder tab. And then we'll slip this into our book, and it fits perfectly. So that little tab sticks out of the finger hole ever so slightly so that we can grab it, and then it coordinates with that page as well. So then we'll continue on with the next page. We need 3 more. So I'll take the next coordinating pattern paper and do the exact same thing. Add it to the edge of this cardstock sheet and create our file folder tabs. Okay, so we're in the home stretch of our book here. Here's a quick little peek at what we've got so far. Looking so pretty. And now we're going to work on the front cover. Now, if you've ever watched any of Gina K Design's Stamp TV videos, you'll always notice that when she talks about her pattern paper, she always says, keep this page. Keep the page because you can cut this out and use it for your cards. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do exactly what Gina says. I'm going to trim out this little element. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to fussy cut out this little label. And I'm going to use this as a place to stamp a sentiment on the front of my book. So I'm going to super speed this up because I'm very, very slow at fussy cutting. If you've watched any of my videos, you've never seen me cut in real time because you'll be here all day. So I'm going to speed this up and we'll get this cut out. And then once that's cut out, I'm going to gently take a smaller pair of scissors and I'm going to cut out that center circle, the one that says watercolor garden. So I'm just going to trim that out because I want to be able to stamp a sentiment and lay this label over top of my sentiment. So I've just got a scrap piece of cardstock that I'm going to cut to fit in behind my label here. So I've grabbed the Gina K Designs Fruit of the Season stamp set, and I'm going to stamp a greeting in here that's a quote from Mother Teresa, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. The quote says, "Love is a fruit in season at all times and within reach of every hand." I really like that, and I thought it was perfect for the front of this book. So I'm going to stamp it with my Versamark Onyx Black ink, and I'll use my Gina K Connect glue to adhere my label to my sentiment. And then I'll use my Connect glue to glue this down to the front of my book. So let's have a look at the finished project. I hope that you've enjoyed my Jenny's Junk Journal video series. If you haven't had a chance to see any of the other videos, I will link to a playlist that showcases a variety of different styles and sizes of journals that I've made so far. If you like this content here today, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love to have you along my card making journey. Coming up on screen are a few videos that I think you may enjoy. So thanks so much for spending a little bit of your time with me here today. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!